WADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, 1 p.m. in Porto Novo. Good afternoon and welcome to this edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal, and live at wadr.org. In the news this afternoon, suspected terrorists killed 38 Nigerian soldiers in a fresh attack. Former Ivorian President Gbagbo joins forces with opposition leader Cham ahead of October presidential polls.
Tell those who want to listen that I will not give up in the fight against the 4 mandates.
Despite a bail-born, freedom fighters in Nigeria decry the weaponization of the justice system against federal lawmaker Natasha Akpoti.
Why is it that the federal government is not taking on the sexual harassment allegations that were made? Why are they selective in the way they're doing? We can't continue to have selective justice. Selective justice is injustice.
And pressure mounts in Togo for Nyasimbe's resignation. Please stay with us for details of these stories and more.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
My name is Sankule Jibril Janko, and once again, good to have you join us. The central state of Nigeria has been hit again by a fresh armed attacks in Banibongo, a town on the border with Mali. At least 34 Nigerian soldiers were killed during the assault that took place on Thursday, according to a statement from the Nigerian Ministry of Defense. It also reported that 14 soldiers sustained injuries in the attack and are receiving medical attention. According to a statement, the attack in Banibongo was carried out by a group of mercenaries that arrived in the 8 vehicles and rode on more than 200 motorcycles. However, the Defense Ministry stated that its forces killed dozens of insurgents during the clash. In the meantime, search operations both on land and air are ongoing to locate the attackers. The Sahelian region of West Africa has been experiencing a surge in terrorist attacks, particularly targeting military formations. In neighboring Burkina Faso, the government has banned the use of mobile phones, army on the front line of fight against insurgency. The transitional president, Captain Ibrahim Traore, has threatened to dismiss any soldier who uses these devices on the front line. Experts also warn that cell phones can distract soldiers on duty and make it easier for armed terrorist groups to carry out attacks. Imo Edet completes the story.
Captain Ibrahim Traore made these remarks to soldiers at the National Commando Training Center in Po, in the south-central region of Burkina Faso. The Burkinabe president clarified that any soldier caught using a smartphone during military operations will be punished and dismissed from the ranks of the Burkinabe army.
Those who will show themselves unable to change, to drop their phones during the operation, we will chase them out of our ranks and punish them severely. Can you imagine? You are in detachment on your position. Good soldiers are going up the faction, concentrated at their posts. They finish, they go down, and a saboteur finds himself at the post with his phone until the enemy approaches and attacks, and the good soldiers can die in their rest.
Meanwhile, security analyst Yemboini Lumpo confirms that cell phones pose a risk to the success of military operations.
When a soldier is deployed to the front, he is in 3 positions. A moment of distraction on his smartphone can have fatal consequences for him, for his comrades, and for the whole mission.
The security specialist expresses the importance of raising awareness among frontline soldiers about the use of smartphones. Beyond this ban, he recommends the need for decompression activities within the military.
People who are cut off from their families, people who are cut off from their leisure. The environment must be really framed. We must create rest areas, create recreation spaces, libraries, and simple gyms.
Lumpo also calls for psychological support for soldiers and strengthening trust between the military hierarchy and soldiers on operations.
A report from WADR's correspondent Martin Kaba in Ouagadougou, voiced by Imo Edet. In Togo, tensions are rising ahead of a series of protests sparked by social media demanding the resignation of Nyasimbe, the president of the Council of Ministers. On June 6, a significant demonstration was held in the capital Lomé to protest against poor governance, high cost of living, and the arrest of dissenting voices. This protest was suppressed by law enforcement, with approximately 50 people arrested and several others were later released. Meanwhile, joint demonstrations are set to take place again in Lomé in the coming week. Augustine Colley has the details.
Since the June 6 demonstration in Lomé against the government, authorities have not yet determined who was behind the protests or whether social media played a role in mobilizing participants. This time, the organizers plan to barricade major roads in the capital Lomé on the nights to support the government's efforts to calm the social climate, especially with municipal elections approaching in just a few weeks.
Augustine Colley with that report. Elsewhere, in Côte d'Ivoire, former President Laurent Gbagbo and opposition leader Tidjane Cham have formed a joint political front to challenge the ruling government. Their primary goal is to oppose President Alassane Ouattara's candidacy for the presidential election scheduled for October 2025. Additionally, this opposition unity aims to advocate for the registration of key political opponents on the electoral list before the upcoming elections. Abdullah Hassan reports.
The PPACI of former Ivorian President Laurent Gbagbo and Tidjane Cham's PDCI party signed a political agreement on Thursday in Abidjan, formalizing the upcoming creation of a united front. The two opposition parties now hope to be joined by others to ensure that the opposition speaks with one voice. Soumaila Bredomi is the spokesperson for the PDCI.
Processed before the presidential election in October 2025 to review the electoral list as provided by the Electoral Code, which presents numerous anomalies put into view by all the majority political parties, including the PPACR and the PDCR-RODA.
However, it's important to note that Laurent Gbagbo, Tidjane Cham, Charles Blé Goudé and Guillaume Soro, who have all declared their candidacies for the presidency, have been removed from the electoral roll by court order. As a result, they are ineligible to run in the upcoming election. Despite this setback, Laurent Gbagbo expressed his support for the formation of this common political front, emphasizing its necessity for respecting democracy in the country.
Tell those who want to listen that I will not give up in the fight against the 4 mandates.
The former president reaffirmed his commitment to fighting for an inclusive election next October, which should include the participation of all major opposition political players.
Abdullah Hassan with the details of Marcel Ariston Blaise report from Abidjan.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Let's travel to Nigeria now, where the West Africa Economic Summit WAIS 2025 kicks off today, Friday, in Abuja. This year's edition is officially hosted by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, with the active participation and support of all the West African heads of state and governments. The summit takes place with the theme Unlocking Trade and Investment Opportunities in the Region. For the next 2 days, ECOWAS heads of states and governments aim to foster dialogue, build partnership, and drive regional cooperation to position West Africa as a globally competitive and unified economic bloc. The West African Economic Summit WAIS is a premier regional event that unites leaders, policymakers, business stakeholders, and youth to drive economic integration, promote investment, and foster sustainable growth across West Africa. In her welcome address, Nigeria's Minister of State for Foreign Affairs described the summit as more than just a meeting. It is, in her words, a platform for a shared West African identity.
This legacy has forged a shared identity, one that drives collective progress and is strengthened through unified diplomacy. This gathering is a landmark event. It is a bold affirmation of our region's collective will to deepen economic cooperation, unlock our immense trade and investment potential, and craft a future of shared prosperity for the peoples of West Africa.
Nigeria's Minister of State for Foreign Affairs. We continue in Nigeria because Thursday marked the beginning of a legal battle between the Kogi Central Senator Natasa Akpoti Odwagan and the federal government. The Mbatu lawmaker was arraigned before the Abuja High Court of 3 counts, including defamation against the President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, and one other individual. The court, after a brief session, released Natasha on a $32,000 bail bond and adjourned the hearing to September 23, 2025. While her defense team assures of readiness for the full trial, supporters of Natasha from the civil and legal community have criticized the federal government's involvement in what they say is a civil matter. As Francis Boniface reports, she has accused Akpabio of sexual harassment.
The Kogi Central Senator Natasha Akpoti Udwahan appeared before the High Court on Thursday, accompanied by her husband, Chief Udwahan, a former minister, Obiezekwe Sili, famous activist Aisha Yusufu, and numerous supporters. The federal lawmaker faces 3 counts of charges bordering on alleged defamation of Senate President Godswill Akpabio and former governor of Kogi State Yahaya Bello. After a brief hearing session, Senator Natasha Akpoti Udwahan was released on a 50 million naira or $32,000 bail bond. Dressed in her usual Indian-like garment, the embattled lawmaker spared a few words to her supporters.
Very grateful to Nigerians for their love, prayers and support.
Her defense counsel, surrounded by journalists after the hearing, said very little as the case was adjourned to September 23, 2025.
We intend to cope and comply with the conditions of bail, and we are ready for trial. The matter has been adjourned. Pray for us and wish us good luck.
A freedom fighter and Bring Back Our Girls campaigner, Aisha Yusufu, expressed dissatisfaction with the process. She decried attempts by the federal government of Nigeria to frustrate the original case of sexual harassment.
Why is it that the federal government is not taking on the sexual harassment allegations that were made? Why are they selective in the way they're doing? It is between Senator Akpabio and Senator Natasha. On what basis is the federal government coming in when a lot of the petition that Senator Natasha herself had put out has not been done? We can't continue to have selective justice. Selective justice is injustice. And the more this keeps going on, if they can do it to her, who else is safe in this country?
The government, citing Section 391 of the Penal Code, Cap 89, Laws of the Federation 1990, accused Senator Natasha Akpoti Udwahan of making imputation, knowing or having reason to believe that such imputation will harm the reputation of a person.
Francis Boniface reporting there. Meanwhile, in Liberia, one of the leading suspects in the case involving an arson attack on the country's parliament building has accused the police authorities of attempting to bribe witnesses to lie against lawmakers involved in the case. John Nyanti, who fled the country shortly after the incident, was arrested recently in Ghana and taken back to Liberia. He has since been charged with multiple offences related to the arson. WDR's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker reports.
Suspect John Yanti stated that he returned to Liberia on June 6 to do a setup organized by a family member. He claims that upon his return, he was detained in an expensive hotel and offered large sums of money to testify against 5 lawmakers, including former House Speaker Fonati Kofa.
It's a blatant lie. It's a lie coming from the belly of the devil. You get evidence, you don't get it.
Engagement with Mr. Yanti concern has been identified from day one as a person of interest in this case, and he has been on the run. He was arrested. Mr. Yanti was brought back into the country on the 6th. The intervention of a family member who made a request that he was willing to cooperate.
The recent developments have left many citizens confused and questioning Yanti's account and the ongoing police investigations. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
You're listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Suspected terrorists killed 34 Nigerian soldiers in a fresh attack. Despite a bail bond, freedom fighters in Nigeria decry the weaponization of the justice system against federal lawmaker Natasha Akpoti. Former Ivorian President Gbagbo joins forces with opposition leader Cham ahead of October presidential polls. Pressure mounts in Togo for Nyasimbe's resignation. Still ahead in the news, The African American Association of Senegal calls on African leaders to exhibit prudent leadership and prudent use of resources. We also have the guest interview and sport news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
The African American Association of Senegal has called on African leaders to exhibit prudent leadership and effective usage of the continent's resources for African development. Joining the rest of the world to commemorate this year's June 19th, also known as June 10th, which marks the 160th anniversary of the emancipation of the last group of enslaved Africans in Texas, USA. The association called for critical sensitization and education to ensure the mental emancipation from the current forms of neo-colonialism. As Christopher Atichi reports, the celebration in Dakar also aimed at uniting the African-American diaspora along with other Africans in the spirit of shared celebration.
The transatlantic slavery remains one of the dark days and chapters in the African history, with over millions of Africans losing their dignity to the inhumane arts. During the fight for emancipation of Africans enslaved in America, slaves in Texas state were the last to be notified of their freedom on June 19, 1865. Giving rise to this annual celebration of June 19th or Juneteenth. Celebrated in Texas and other states of America annually, this year's event was not of a difference. However, the African American Association of Senegal held its maiden edition in Dakar with the aim of uniting African American diaspora along with other Africans in the spirit of shared celebration. Trikaria, executive member of the association, called for sensitization and education to ensure mental emancipation from the current form of neocolonialism, while calling for effective leadership.
Teaching our children about our history. You know, in America, they're stripping the history away from history classes. To be an intentional leader, you never know the influence that you may have, and your past doesn't dictate your future. So yes, we have a traumatic past, but it doesn't mean that we have to have a traumatic future.
Other Black Americans and Africans at the event shared varying views of learning lessons from the past and building a robust continent.
Emancipation now is us emancipating ourselves from the mental slavery that still exists in school systems, that still exists in cultural hegemony in places like America, London, Canada, all those places that still see African people as lesser than. This is very important.
Although it is our history from the States and in America, I think it involves everyone due to the transatlantic slave trade. I think what's really cool here is inviting others, really just embracing everyone and sharing our cultures with each other.
Aside the day's reflections of history, the day was also a moment of shared joyous festivity of African American cuisine, culture, and networking opportunities.
Christopher Atichu filed that report. Now we'll go with the guest interview.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is a guest.
On our guest interview this afternoon is Nigeria's famous freedom fighter and activist Aisha Yusuf. Yusuf, a campaigner for the Bring Back Our Girls movement, speaks to WDR about her comment made on Thursday at the Abuja High Court when she accompanied embattled federal lawmaker Natasha Akpoti-Orogan. The female senator was arraigned on 3 counts of defamation and, after a brief hearing, granted a bail for the sum of $32,000. Our guest, responding to the case, which has been adjourned to September 23, 2025, said it's nothing but selective justice.
One of the reasons why I referred to that was the fact that the same Senator Natasha had filed petition against the Senate president and accused him of sexual harassment. This is a petition that she filed to the Nigerian police, and they haven't done anything, about it. They have not taken on the case. They have not touched it. They have not responded. They have done nothing about it. And then here we come. After she had filed that, and she alleged that there was, plot to kill her, to assassinate her, involving the Senate president and also a former governor of her state, Yahaya Bello. Her state is Kogi State in Nigeria. And the next thing that we have is that the federal government, and so Senator Akpabio, they had done petition to the police, and the federal government is now, prosecuting Senator Natasha. So for me, that's selective. If you say you're for justice, may someone's right has been infringed upon, or you think that defamation had been done, and the state, out of lack of work to do, decides that it's going to prosecute, why then have they not, also prosecuted the Senate president for the sexual allegation petition that Senator Natasha had also done? And on the issue also of plot to her life, she had also made this petition known, and we saw on the floor where the Senate president had read out that her security were going to be taken away from her.
Are you aware, if at all, Senator Natasha followed through the petition to the police over the alleged sexual harassment by her principal officer?
How is one supposed to follow through? Is there a particular mechanism that is different from certain citizens and different from other citizens? You do a petition, you send it in. You do a petition alleging plot to your life, you send it in. Nothing is done about it. And the reason why, I made that statement categorically is because it's something that I know the police does a lot. I've had people who have sent in petition, and the police, with the Nigerian police force, will deliberately not act upon it, but there are certain ones that they act upon. We cannot continue to have, separate, laws or institutions being used separately depending on whom a person is or the kind of connection that the person has at a particular time. I have said it repeatedly, and I will repeat it here, that unfortunately for us, the Nigerian police force had allowed, even the judiciary itself, has allowed itself to be a tool against the people, and then they're used to get at the people, to go after the people, instead of protecting the people that is supposed to be its constitutional duty.
As you urge for transparency in this process, which of course many will hope that it becomes a clear example of an effective and impartial judicial system or justice system in Nigeria, what is at stake here? Because as we speak, Senator Natasha is 6-month suspension from the parliament and parliamentary activities. Technically speaking, parliamentary immunity has been lifted or removed.
A lot of things are involved here. First of all, we see a judiciary that has lost its power because even within the process of that, her removal, before a removal, there was an injunction, I believe, that was by the courts to halt that whole process. The National Assembly did not listen to the judiciary. They refused to. And so you first of all see a situation whereby the politicians that we have, whether elected or appointed, they decide what to obey and what not to obey from the judiciary. That's on one hand. On the other hand also, you find that there are cases, a lot of people have gone to court, and there are rulings that the House does not have the right to suspend a member from performing his or her legislative duties because it's the people that voted for that person. Continuously, you've seen the houses that we had, both the National Assembly and the State Houses of Assembly, they have continued to refuse to obey this ruling, of the court. You now have millions of people who voted for someone. They no longer have representatives at the National Assembly, and they are left without that leadership. We have the issue of sexual harassment, which is a major issue, unfortunately, in Nigeria. A lot of women, a lot of vulnerable people, even sometimes men, have faced sexual harassment, and it's been an ongoing issue where people who are in power, they use it to intimidate people. You find that some people losing the promotions they're supposed to have, being taken to some places where their growth has stunted just because they refuse the advances of people who have power. So it's a whole lot of things attached to this. So it's not a Natasha Akpabio issue. No, it's about a whole lot of different systemic issues that we have that are all packed into one particular case.
Isa Yusuf speaking there. in sports, we begin with the latest happening in the Club FIFA World Cup currently happening because Paris Saint-Germain PSG endured a surprising 1-0 defeat at the hands of Brazilian side Botafogo in the Tennis Club World Cup group stage encounter, pitting Europe's top team against South Africa's finest. The decisive moment came in the first half when Brazilian international Igor Jesus found the net, handing Botafogo a crucial victory on Thursday evening at the Rose Bowl in Pasada, where 53,699 fans witnessed the intense showdown. The result puts Rio-based club in a strong position to progress to the knockout stage. PSG, the reigning French and European champions, entered the 32 FIFA tournament as one of the clear favorites, especially after their dominant 5-0 triumph over Inter Milan in the UEFA Champions League final just a week ago. A win in this match would have made them the first team to secure a spot in the round of 16. However, Botafogo, disciplined and determined display frustrated the Parisians, preventing them from building momentum despite their impressive form in Sunday's 4-0 victory over Atletico Madrid in Group B. PSG's best chance came with Kylian Cavasra, focused on save goalkeeper John 2 minutes. Unfortunately for PSG, they were not able to secure another victory against a very good Brazilian side. Well, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Faluluso and Umu Danyogo for their technical assistance. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X and Instagram at WDR English, and on Facebook, WDR English Service. Join Demba Amar An at the top of the hour of 1 p.m. for the second edition of Info Shevo. I am Seconde Jibril Janko. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Nibe County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Gulf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.